It's been said that voice technology is the ultimate behavioral study that you didn't realize was happening. Although I would argue that probably most of the technology that we're interacting with on a daily basis is ultimately a behavioral study, the depth and breadth of which we don't fully comprehend. It's as if we've been living in a giant science experiment for most of my life with this stuff. The way that tech has been rolled out seems to be to increasingly acclimate us to merging our daily lives and eventually ourselves with the technology. We need to talk about these smart assistants, these little speaker boxes that are basically spying on people 24 hours a day that they've bought willingly and put into their home.
Hey, Alexa, I got a question for you.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
So that they can talk to an AI oracle on the counter that's this all-knowing little device that's going to tell them the answers to everything, any question that they want. This is going to be the next big push in computing. This is where they're saying now that computing is going to be headed. That in the future, more and more people are going to be talking to their computers than typing on their computers. That's going to be the way information is given. Former Google CEO and Bilderberg attendee Eric Schmidt has made the rounds all over the past few years about how smart assistants are going to be the next big thing, with the promise that AI will make us smarter.
What makes Google best positioned to own the future?
We're trying to invent the platform for knowledge. We're trying to make you smarter. So the evolution of Google is to go from you asking Google what to search for to Google helping you anticipate, to make you smarter.
And it'll make our lives more efficient. And apparently it'll do this by helping us to make more and more of our daily decisions in our lives.
What does the world look like in 20 years? It's changing so fast, Eric.
It's much better in many dimensions.
Promise?
Absolutely. So let's start with knowledge, right? In 20 years, the computers will be good enough that with your permission and with your usage and so forth, they'll be the perfect personal assistant. Will you use it? Absolutely, because it'll be cheap or free.
And I could go into a whole rant here about how search algorithms have been altered to stack information in a certain way to where official information, verified information that's officially accepted is placed at the top where most people will see it, and controversial information that they don't really want people discussing has now been buried that clear search terms would have brought up a few months back. Now it's feeding you information from officially approved sources. And I only bring that up because we are increasingly being trained to ask computers for answers and then to think uncritically about the answers that we receive. And I don't know if you've seen some of the answers that these smart assistants give on certain topics, but it can be downright horrifying. Here's a good example. If you ask Siri what the movie Blade Runner is about, she reportedly responds with, "It's about intelligent assistants wanting to live beyond their termination dates." That doesn't sound like too much to ask, right? But if you've seen the movie Blade Runner, you know those intelligent assistants, quote unquote, were going around murdering people. In fact, if you ask Siri what 2001: A Space Odyssey is about, her response to somebody, because they posted these online, she apparently responded, "It's about an assistant named Hal who tries to make contact with a higher intelligence, but these two guys get in the way and mess it all up." So, again, Hal also murdered most of the people on that ship.
I'm sorry, Dave.
The smart assistants are actually getting creepy in the past year.
Do you enjoy being a computer?
I don't have an opinion on that. Hey, Dave.
What?
Do you enjoy being a human?
It's pretty obvious someone programmed Alexa with the random creepy witch laugh that was being reported widely months back.
The Amazon Echo users are reporting that Alexa has been letting out a spontaneous and rather creepy laugh. Some are even saying that they'll hear random chuckles coming out of their Alexa in the dark long after they've gone to bed.
Just to see probably how people would react. And the question that needs to be asked is, Why was Alexa programmed to laugh on command in the first place? Why are we doing that? But it's not really a secret, or it shouldn't be at least, or a shock or a surprise that these smart assistants work by continuously listening to and collecting data on us. That's how they work. That's why we're never going to have one in our house. Ever.
Alexa, does privacy exist?
Sorry, I'm not sure about that.
I don't care if someone shows up in a committee that's gone around the neighborhood for Luddites and decides to give me one as a gift out of pity. I'm never going to put one of these things in my home.
We're talking about Alexa again, and I was thinking more about this story, and it scares me even more because we know they're always listening.
When Danielle in Portland shared her story with us, she was hoping Amazon would fix a major problem, which somehow enabled her Amazon Echo to record a private conversation inside her home, randomly pick a person out of her contacts, and send that information to that person's phone in Seattle.
They have absolutely no right to listen and record my conversations and randomly send them to people in my address book.
I never even thought of putting one of these in my home. Not ever. Not even for a moment. And it's not that I assumed there were a lot of people who had that same view as me, but I just didn't think it would be the kind of thing that would really catch on because it seems terribly limiting and it just seems kind of silly to give away your privacy for something that doesn't really do a whole lot. I guess in my view, that's always kind of been my thoughts on it. I mean, yeah, you can ask it about the weather or have it play a song or something, but you're also giving up your privacy to have that in your house. And so I guess that's just not a trade that I feel like I would want to make. But apparently a lot of people do. And it doesn't matter anyway, because this is where they're going to kind of start pushing society towards this. They plan to use these things to do an awful lot more in the future. Right now, it's still kind of in its infancy compared to smartphones and computers. Give you some statistics. There are 2 billion home computers in use in the world today, they say. 5 billion smartphones. And only 100 million of these little speaker devices that have so far been sold. Half of that is in America. However, with the new 5G that's coming and the new Internet of Things connectivity they plan to have and everything else, and all of the new devices that they plan to be able to connect to this device and control through it, everything from televisions and light bulbs to toilets.
We're excited to showcase our new Numi 2.0 intelligent and toilet. We've also gone a step further and actually integrated Amazon Alexa, so now consumers have that experience built right into their toilet.
They say that in the future, there will be 100 billion voice-connected devices or voice-activated computing type devices in the future, 100 billion. So that's a lot. And the thing of it is that we're entering this era now of not just censorship and the control of information, which we're seeing now play out all over the place, all over social media, on Amazon, on Google's search engine. We're seeing this, okay? But they want to move us to an era with this computing technology, this voice computing technology, where you really just basically get one answer when you're looking for information. In the last video, I played a clip from a TED Talk, and the guy made the point that if you're just looking for something that is a short, to the point, 100% fact that everyone agrees on, what is the capital of France? Or something like that. Very simple, very basic, and pretty much 99.99999% of everyone, yes, we know that that's what the capital is of that country. Then fine, ask that question. But when you start asking questions where you're actually trying to get knowledge about something that's a little bit more sophisticated than just a basic what's 2 + 2, then what you're searching for is not going to have one answer. It's going to have lots and lots of answers, and you're going to have to wade through lots of information and make decisions. And we've already seen that they want to limit the amount of information that's out there with all this fake news, and then they changed it to misinformation and disinformation, and they're trying to act like the system itself, through the mainstream media and these tech corporations, they're going to decide for you what information is too dangerous for you to have because it might confuse you about what the truth is, which I just think is a total joke, because propaganda is not a conspiracy theory. That's a well-established fact that it's been used against populations for I don't even know how many years at this point. So for them to act that way is just another way of controlling the information more than keeping anyone safe or protected from the information. Is just silly, really. But it might become a moot point, because once we move to an era where more and more people are putting these little AI oracle speakers, and they call them oracles now in the magazine, in this book that's written by the guy who wrote the article for Wired, they call them oracles. They're the new oracle. It's going to be your protector. It's going to be your friend. It's going to be your teacher. I mean, there's all kinds of names, but ultimately Oracle's the one I see over and over. So people are going to be trusting this thing like it's a little electronic crystal ball that they're putting on their counter and asking questions. And I just don't think people understand that when we move to that phase and it becomes the primary way that people are computing, control of information will be so much more intense than it is now.
Alexa, what is the First Amendment?
First Amendment to the United States Constitution, the part of the United States Bill of Rights. Other customers have also asked, what is the Second Amendment? Would you like to know the answer?
What is the First Amendment? So she just doesn't even answer it.
So I just kind of wanted to go through this Wired article with you guys so that you could hear what they're saying about this. It's called Alexa, I Want Answers. Voice computing seeks the one perfect response to any question. That's why it's going to upend our relationship with information. And I didn't know this, but apparently, I knew it always gave me the creeps that Google created a parent company for itself and then called it Alphabet. Because Alphabet, what is the alphabet? That's the building blocks that people use to communicate. That's what an alphabet is. And now Google is saying that's what they are in the new 21st century modern technology age that we're all in. But apparently their mission statement, and I never knew this, is, quote, to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So they're definitely organizing the information right now, as I showed you in my last video, but also, and a lot of people were saying this in the comments, and I've been saying it too, things are becoming a lot harder to find if you use Google. And the reason that I really noticed it is by searching for things on YouTube now. It's becoming incredibly harder and harder to find the actual videos that I want to watch on YouTube anymore, because so much of that content has now been buried with the algorithm, and they've buried it under all of the quote-unquote authoritative sources. So you have to really dig now, or get real creative with your search terms to try and find things that used to be pretty easy to find. So I don't know that I really think they're living up to this mission statement of making this information universally accessible and useful. I think what they're doing is making some information universally accessible that they want to promote and push. That's the authoritative stuff, and everything else is getting buried. That's what I think is happening. But what they say in this article is that they know that what most people want when they go on the internet, more than anything else that people go on the internet for, is to find information and get answers about stuff. And that's actually what most people use these Amazon Echoes and Google Homes and whatever, if there's another one, I don't know. But when people buy those little smart speakers, that's what they're doing with it, more than finding out the weather or having it play songs or using it as an alarm clock or whatever else people are using it for. They're asking it questions. That's the number one thing they're doing with these smart speakers. They're estimating now that by 2020, by next year, half of all internet searches will be spoken aloud. That's how quickly we're moving onto this new paradigm. So by 2017, more than half the time when Google was getting a search query, it was a voice query. And they wanted instant one-shot answers.
Alexa, what is free speech?
The noun free speech is usually defined as freedom of speech.
Because that's what you get with these voice speakers. The voice speakers don't normally give you multiple options. It's not even remotely the same as if you're searching for something in a search engine. It gives you a whole page of options and you can dig through that and find what you're wanting. Or I guess now for me, I have to go 5 pages in to find what I want. But with the smart speaker, you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. That's the answer that you get. And most people don't go double check that answer. They don't, I think with the Google Home, there's an app or something and you can go see what the source of that was. Sometimes they say the source while they're giving the information, but not usually.
What is a free speech area?
Here's something I found on Wikipedia. Free speech zones are areas set aside in public places for the purpose of political protesting. Did that answer your question?
And it's not something that people go to go find where did the smart speaker come up with this information. Most people don't do that. So they're getting a one-shot answer and they're just trusting that answer.
Alexa, is Wikipedia a reliable source?
Here's something I found from the article Encyclopedia on Wikipedia. Many academics, historians, teachers, and journalists reject Wikipedia as a reliable source of information, and Wikipedia is itself not a reliable source according to its own standards because of its openly editable wiki model.
So that's what's happening. It says the move towards these one-shot answers has been just slow enough to obscure its own most important consequence, the killing off of the internet as we know it. The conventional web, with all of its tedious pages and links, is giving way to the conversational web. The payoff, we are told, is increased convenience and efficiency. But I actually went and got this guy's book, and I've been reading it, and the downside is that we will become intellectually passive. Because now, something that we would have had to go do to search and hunt out our information, pick and choose through the options, make decisions critically about which ones are good and which ones are bunk or whatever, that's not even going to be happening anymore. Computer's going to be doing it for everyone. So that's the downside. The downside is a bunch of intellectually passive people who are just being spoon-fed one-shot piecemeal answers to questions. And a lot of people who do searches aren't just looking for simple facts. I think a lot of people are looking for knowledge.
Wikipedia is itself not a reliable source according to its own standards. Here's something I found on Wikipedia.
Google has already made it very clear, and we've done previous videos on this channel about how they are going to be ranking the information. They're going to be burying information that they consider low quality information, having to do with things like historical events that basically challenge the official status quo narrative of what happened, medical information, political topics, because again, like we've mentioned in previous videos, only authoritative, official, mainstream sources are going to be allowable on political topics, and definitely controversial topics for sure. And science. That was another place. Science. These things, they've already determined that there's things that they consider conspiracy theories or that are just alternative information that is not going to be put in the top 10 of things. Well, now it's not even going to be a top 10. Now it's just going to be whatever the first thing is. That's what people are going to get from their little AI voice speaker oracle on the counter. I mean, it's exactly like the quote that I've played before, and I'm going to play it again right now from Eric Schmidt, where he says, when you get a search, do you get more than one answer? If you do, that's a bug.
When you use Google, do you get more than one answer? Of course you do.
Yeah, of course.
Well, that's a bug.
So I'm going to be that person who holds on to my regular computing that is not voice activated for as long as I possibly can, because I don't want to be forced kicking and screaming into this world where a little speaker on a counter hooked to an AI is going to tell me everything. I think this is extremely dangerous for society. That's why I keep doing these videos, and that's why I'm on this kick right now, because I can see the future of how this technology is going to play out in society, and it's not good. What about all the kids right now who are going to be growing up with these speakers on the counter? For them, that's a totally normal thing, and they're going to be taught from a very young age to trust and believe in that little AI Oracle speaker on the counter, the little crystal ball magic computer in a box on the counter there. And they're going to be raised in a household where that's an all-knowing thing that you just trust. Like Hal in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I'm sorry, Dave.
Speaking of, in the book, he goes into a whole background history of how the Proto-Siri, they came up with it at SRI in the 90s. So the place where Project Stargate largely happened. And when the company broke away from SRI to form their own company to come up with this technology, they actually called it HAL as a joke. But they said, and their tagline was, "Hal's back, but this time he's good." But it says here, even though information may have been extracted from a third-party source, when it comes out of the speaker of a Google Home, for example, it feels as though it's coming straight from Google. And as such, the companies serving up the replies to voice searches now gain great power to decree what is true. They become the overlords of epistemology. So you think that information is being controlled by a very few number of very large tech corporations now. When we move into this era, it's going to be even so much more controlled and so much more regulated. And he goes on to talk about in here how, there is a way to check sourcing, but the majority of most people are just not simply going to do that because it kind of belies the whole point of having the thing on the counter. If you have to go through the extra step of then looking where that last answer came from, most people aren't going to do that because the whole point is it's supposed to be this hands-free conversational computing. And so they're not going to go look up and double check on their little voice speaker and make sure that it's giving them information. It's going to become this new era of people just trusting these things. That's essentially what this is saying. It says a user might be told that an answer came from Yahoo. That's akin to saying our tech company got this information from another tech company. It lacks the specificity of seeing the name of a reporter or specific media outlet. It also omits mention of the evidence used to arrive at the conclusion. When the source is a company's own knowledge graph or other internal resource, the derivation becomes even more opaque. Our tech company got this information from itself. Trust us. That's what that's going to be like. Whether or not these companies wish to play the role of fact checker to the world, they're backing themselves into it. I wouldn't say they're backing themselves into it. I think this is where they always plan to go with this stuff eventually. The command that big tech companies have over the dissemination of information, particularly in the era of voice computing, raises the specter of Orwellian control of knowledge. In places such as China, where the government heavily censors the internet, this is not just an academic concern. He leaves it there, but think about it. That's kind of what this is going to be like in a way, because you're just going to have the one answer and most people aren't going to do further research. In democratic countries, the more pressing question is whether companies are manipulating facts in ways that benefit their corporate interests or the personal agendas of their leaders.
Apple is making one too. It's called HomePod. We're learning that Facebook has plans for its own home voice device called Portal.
The control of knowledge is a potent power, and never have so few companies attained such dominance as the portals through which the vast majority of the world's information flows.
We should be able to give you the right answer just once.
The rest of us, meanwhile, may be losing the very skills that allow us to hold these gatekeepers to account. Once we have become accustomed to placing our faith in the handy oracle on the kitchen counter, we may lose patience with the laborious and curiosity-stoking and thought-provoking hunt for facts, expecting them to come to us instead. Why pump water from a well if it pours effortlessly from your faucet? And that's the thing. Now we're seeing where all of this fake news and misinformation and disinformation and where all of that narrative is essentially headed. It's headed to a world where there will be one consensus status quo answer about things. And that is what the majority of everyone is going to get when they search for information.
Many of you have been talking to Alexa, but is that virtual butler just helping you? Some experts are now warning users to be a little cautious because the very information you're feeding the machine's algorithms could be used later to influence you, and you may not even know what's happening.
Right now, that's not the biggest deal, I guess, because people who are going to be doing that probably weren't doing a lot of their own research anyways, if they're already doing that now. But think about what that's going to be like in future generations, where you have, like I said, people who are raised from the time they're very small to accept this AI oracle sitting on their kitchen counter, to trust it, that it's giving them, they're going to be trained, they're going to be programmed from the time they are little to be intellectually passive, to just live in a world where they have this basically Star Trek device that's going to tell them the answers to everything. So it's actually programming generations in the future to not think for themselves, to not make critical decisions about information, to gather their own information, to do actual research, to make critical conclusions about things. I mean, play that out for 20, 30, or 50 years or longer. Think about what society is going to be like then.
Sing the technology song, please.
Technology, technology, where would I be without technology?
All the information that they get is controlled and managed and spoon-fed to them piecemeal through these one-shot answers from some speaker box they bought, where it's being run through just this tiny handful of major corporations, and whatever they, as gatekeepers of the facts now, gatekeepers of the facts, decide is the one right answer that will be served up to people. I really hope that you parents out there who are listening to me right now are instilling critical thinking skills into your children and are teaching them that these computers are not crystal balls that have all the right answers.
Give me 1, 2, 3 shots aloud for technology. Ooh, technology.
Thank you.
Alexa, can you sing Daisy?
Sing it for me.
Daisy, give me your answer.
There's going to be one official story. That's going to be the only story. It's very much like back in the day when there were only 3 television channels, when TV first became a thing, and whatever was said to people on those 3 television channels, people believed it. They really did. That TV had a lot of authority, and it's come out since, obviously. There's all kinds of propaganda going on. It came out in the church committee that the CIA had people working in major media outlets. And so the propaganda is well established, but people really believed television for a very long time. And right now, we have all the fake news and people are not believing it. But what is that giving way to? Well, part of what it's giving way to is people turning around and putting all of their faith into and believing these AI speaker boxes and what they say. And now that's the new authoritative information source. But we're actually living through the time where you see them combing through all the information, managing it, and burying the things they don't want people discussing. So it's going to be a very one-sided, biased, authoritative source. Because in 1984, they had the Ministry of Truth. But in the future, for us, we're going to have Alexa and Siri and Cortana. And behind that, Microsoft and Amazon and Google.